Hello, today I welcome you to my world of watches, and in this video we are taking a look at this Addiesdive AD2066. Let's see what it's all about. So this time it is a little bit of a different kind of watch from Addiesdive, as they are usually known for making homages of famous dive style watches, not so much the more dressier pieces. From Addiesdive and Steel Dive I'm used to seeing Seiko Tuna, Rolex Submariner homages, but this time it is something different, very interesting dial, some interesting and weird choices on the watch itself, and plus with all of that I don't believe this is a homage. It does lean towards Grand Seiko in many ways, but I think it still has quite a few details of its own. During various sales you can get this watch for around $50 to $55 and you get pretty good specs for the money, so let's take a closer look. First of all, as always, we are starting with the packaging that this watch comes in, and it's the usual Addiesdive packaging, a sturdy plastic box with cushioning inside, super safe. Also what I like is that the watch came in a bunch of plastic wrap, which was a pain in the ass to take off, but I know that the watch was safe. Also what I like about these cases is that you can use them as travel pouches. I usually just take off the bracelets of my watches, put the heads inside, and I go where I need to go. Now, talking about the measurements, it is very nicely sized at 36mm in diameter. Lug to lug is about 46mm, the thickness is about 11, 19mm lug width, and sized up for my roughly 7-inch wrist. With a supplied bracelet it weighs around 100 grams. Now you can see it on my wrist, and honestly it looks beautiful. The size is just great for this type of watch. It's not a dive watch, you want an elegant look, and it does just that. What I enjoy is that it's only 11mm thick due to it having a quartz movement rather than an automatic one, and also it has a first female link, so it hugs your wrist very comfortably. In my opinion, it should suit a casual wear as well as a more formal one. It should slide under your shirt cuff easily, but it also can be a very subtle accessory in your everyday kind of outfit. The wearing experience from my point of view is just fabulous. As I've mentioned in the start of this video, this watch has quite a few interesting design choices. One of them is on the bracelet. First of all, the first link is a female one. It adds to the wearing experience, but for me maybe takes a little bit out of the elegance. Not saying that I don't like it, just looks a bit out of place for me. It uses a nice fine brushed finish, and also what was new to me is that they've added a milled clasp, which is a nice touch, works perfectly fine, has a lot of micro adjustment holes, but it is a little bit sharp on the edges. Now, we cannot expect everything at this price, and if that really would bother you, all you have to do is take a file and just get to work. Now, the weirdest thing about the bracelet is that they actually chose 19mm for the width. That means that your standard bracelets just won't fit. When you see different bands that I put on throughout this video, they're either 18 or 20mm. So it means if you would want to change the band, you would have to go for a specific 19mm size or use a little bit of a wider strap, an inconvenience that could have been easily avoided by just going for 18mm. The finishes are consistent all throughout the watch. You've got brushed top of the lugs, a polished side, and also a well polished bezel. All of them I think work beautifully with one another, and these sort of finishes make the watch dance in the light a lot more. You get a signed crown, which is also screw down, as well as a nicely decorated screw down case back, which is not see-through. We'll talk about why in a second, but it also gives 100 meters of water resistance to this watch. Now, I wouldn't try this watch in the water, not because I don't believe that it would survive. I think it would do just fine. As a matter of fact, I've tested almost all of my Chinese watches which have decent water resistance in the water by myself, and all of them survived the test. This one I think should do too, but I just won't take this kind of watch to the water. A dive style watch, yes, it is just interesting to try, but this timepiece serves no purpose in the water. The next weird choice in this watch for me is that they went with a Harlex crystal rather than sapphire. It is AR coated, but it is also domed, which means that it is very easy to scratch it. And I've seen a lot of Addiesdive watches with very similar prices which use a sapphire crystal. I don't know why they didn't go for it, as it probably increases the cost of the watch by like $3, but they didn't, so that I'd say is a negative to me. I would rather have a pressed clasp with a sapphire crystal rather than a milled clasp with a hardlex. Now, as you can see, the second hand is sweeping, which could lead you to believe that this might be an automatic watch, but it actually uses a VK31 movement by Seiko, which is a high beating quartz movement, which makes it look like this second hand is sweeping just like on an automatic watch. This is also the reason why we don't get the see-through case back like we usually do with the watches that have automatic movements. There's just no point of showing a couple of plates and a battery. I think this choice is right because not only is this watch thinner because of this, but also the maintenance is much cheaper, but you get a very similar look. Rather than doing a service every 5 years like on an automatic watch, all you will have to do is just change the battery every like 3. I like it, I think it looks nice, it's much more accurate, and it does the job just fine. And now we come to the dial, which is just magnificent. I went with this very light green color, which is super unique. There are 3 choices of dials, a white/silver one, a black/gray one, and also this light green one. I went with this because it just looked the most interesting, and it really didn't disappoint when I got this watch. It has a sunburst effect, and the shade of the green changes throughout the day as well as from the point you look at it. In some lighting it looks almost silver, and in some very rich green. Also, the dial is not flat, it has raised indices with striped line going through them all around the dial, which makes the inner part pop out. The hands are matched very well, the length is also appropriate, and I enjoy that they didn't go too much with the writings. Again, not the usual font for Addiesdive, but as it is a dress style watch, they chose a cursive font. Took some time to adjust, but I think now it looks just fine, and also on the bottom you get the statement of water resistance. As with most of Addiesdive watches, this one uses a BGW9 lume, so it is perfectly visible in the dark, and the lume stays for a very long time. All in all, the dial is done correctly. They didn't overdo it with the writings and putting all sorts of things on there, just basic, simple look that will look elegant with different wardrobe that you may choose. So my final verdict would be positive, but I would suggest you weighing all of the negatives that I've mentioned by yourself and then figuring out whether this watch is for you or not. In my opinion, for 50-ish bucks, I can definitely look past most of the negatives, as for example the 19mm lug choice isn't really that bad considering that it has a very decent bracelet, which I most likely won't change. The hardlex part is also avoidable by just taking care of the watch and looking where you're going. The price I think is very fair comparing to similarly priced watches on the market. So to conclude, for the price I think it is definitely worth it, but you should judge for yourself. As always, the link will be in the description down below, and if you like this video, please leave a like and also consider subscribing and also hitting that little bell so you'll get notified when I upload a new video. And now thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.